In the last video, I showed you how to compute a new variable, and as you may recall, we're in the IMDb Internet Movie Database dataset, and we created this variable that was 1, we created this variable that was 2, and 2 was constructed by adding this variable to the number 1. And then we constructed this variable that was called movie picker, and that was a kind of a dumb name for it, but movie picker was trying to turn every movie that was made in 1987 and was less than 90 minutes. And if it met those two conditions, it gave this variable a 1. Now, one of the things that's kind of frustrating about SPSS is that if it gives everybody a 1, it doesn't really give you an easy option to turn everything else into a 0. So here's a good example of one that actually made it. Currently row 1125, and the way that I have it sorted is this movie. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but you can see that it was made in 1987 and it is 85 minutes long. So it met those, and therefore it got the 1. If we wanted to see others, we could sort this in descending order. You'd see all of the ones, and here are a bunch of them. So Amazon Women on the Moon, 1987, 85 minutes. Scrolling down, Benji the Hunted, 1987, 88 minutes, and so on. So you can see how that works. But what we want is for movie picker to not only be 1s for all of the variables, for all of the rows that met the conditions. We want it to be 0s for all of the people who didn't meet the conditions. By people, I mean movies. So what we want to do is we want to convert within this variable. And I'm going to show you how to do that and show you two examples why that's really useful. So first of all, sometimes you just want to remove the blanks and you want to call them something else. The other example is if you want to make some groups and you want to collect together into groups a bunch of different variables so that they are a little bit more simple to categorize together. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to go up to transform, and then you can see that down here there's these two options: recode into same variable and recode into different variable. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to recode into the same variable. That means within this variable we're going to change some of the rows to be something else. So we're going to click on that. You get this nice window right here, and basically what I'm going to do is off to the left you see all the variables, and so we're going to put movie picker in there, and then then you click on this old and new values, and it brings up this other dialog box. And what this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to assign values to assign new values to current values. So right now we have it where there are a bunch of rows that have 1 and there's a bunch of rows that have nothing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on, if it's system or user missing, I'm going to call it 0. So over here is the old value, over here is the new value. I could call it anything I wanted. I could call it 100, I could call it 333, I could call it 99. If it were a string variable, I could call it Texas or high school degree or whatever I wanted. And then you have to go over here and click add. So what it's going to do is it's just going to take the old variable, which is missing, turn it into a 0. You can also stack up a bunch of these within here. So we'll go ahead and do just that one for now. You hit continue, and then, yes, you guessed it, we're going to hit paste. And then in the syntax that we've already been building, it put together this recode movie picker where missing equals 0. We hit the run. And then over here, now what we're going to have is we're going to have a bunch of other choices. So these ones that are 0, these are not going to be in 1987. So this is 1947, and it was 8 minutes long. Bowery Bugs was 1949 and 7 minutes long. So everything that was not from 1987 and less than 90 minutes is a 0, and everything that is from 1987 and is less than 90 minutes is a 1. And this is going to be a really, really helpful thing to be able to do, because you can use this as a filter variable, where if you wanted to just delete everything that wasn't in that situation, you could select them up here. You can also run some really basic descriptives on this, which is really easy because from here you can see that when you're calculating with 1 and 0, you can see these percentiles really easily. And then you can also see the categories. So now you have 333, and then the other 58,455 do not meet those conditions. So that's one really simple example, and in some of the homework assignments you are going to be asked specifically to build what I just did, which is called an indicator variable. Put a 1 in place where there are certain conditions, put a 0 in place where those conditions do not exist. But another thing that you're going to be asked to do is you're going to be asked to categorize what are a bunch of categories into a smaller set of categories. So in this case, you can do it a couple different ways, but what I'm going to show you is this transform function, and we're going to recode into a different variable. So this is sort of combining two things we've already seen: building a new variable while also recoding an existing variable. So we're going to click there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to recode the year that a movie was made into the century that it was made. So whereas these movies go from way back in the 1890s all the way up through the 2000s, I'm going to ask you to code it into either the 19th century, the 20th century, or the 21st century. So we're going to grab our year variable, and we are going to name our new output variable century. So that's the first step, is we're taking what is an existing variable in our data set and we're going to build a new variable. By the way, you had to hit this change in order to get this, this calculated up there. Then under old and new values, this should look really familiar. And so you have all of the option to recalculate what was an old value within one variable into a new value in the new variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it from a range, where if it was from 1800 to 1899, that is going to be the 19th century. And then what you do, you punch in your new variable and you hit add, just like I just showed you. If it was from 1900 to 1999, we are going to call this the 20th century. And if it was from 2000 until 2016, which is now, we're going to call that the 21st century. By the way, you also have the option of using the lowest and the highest, so I could also do range 2000 through the highest, the maximum value. If I did this right here, you know, that would be 2000 through the highest. That would just pick the maximum, because obviously there are no years in the data set greater than 2016, which it is right now. But I'm going to remove this and show you the other way, which was, again, 2000 to 2016. We're going to call this the 21st century and add that. So as a recap, these are the old values, these are the new values, and this is how they're going to be recoded. 1800 through 1899 are going to be 19, 1900 through 1999 are going to be 20, and 2000 through 2016 are going to be 21. If everything looks like it's good, we're going to hit continue. Then we're going to hit paste. Going back here to our syntax window, now you can see this recode variable added a couple of different things. 1800 through 1899 equals 19, and so on. I will say this over and over, you do not need to be able to write this code, you just need to be able to run it. You hit that, and then what you're now going to have is you're going to have a new variable in your data set that is going to be century. And if we look at these centuries going down, you're going to see that they are recoded. So right here is the 20th century, and right here is the 21st century. This was made in 1960, this was made in 2004. So if you ever want to see the breakout of every single different level, you can always go to frequencies. So analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. And what we'll do is we'll do year. If you hit OK, this will show you all the different years that were made and all the movies. So you can see every one of these years is represented, right? Let's do the exact same thing for, I'm going to hit reset to get rid of year, but we're going to do this for century. And lo and behold, there should be 3 options, 19, 20, and 21. And as you can see, only 0.1% of all the movies in this data set were made in the 19th century. 81% were made in the 20th century, which of course makes good sense because the 20th century lasted for 100 years and the 21st century has only lasted for 16. So it makes good sense that the distribution looks like this. But about 18.4% of the movies in the data set were made in the 21st century since the year 2000. So I hope that you can understand why this would be important. What we're able to do is compress what were hundreds of years worth of movies, or well over 100 years worth of movies, into 3 different buckets. And keep in mind that that is going to be useful for a lot of reasons in this class. So for example, we might have a question where we ask someone's age, and they give us a whole range of ages, but really we just want to know if they are between 18 and 24, 25 and 36, and 37 and older. That would be exactly how you would go about that process.